We all have heard people say, start with what you have where you are. Start small while thinking big. Well, guys, I must admit, that wasn't me when I was going to start this YouTube channel. I remember I really wanted to start big. But you know how the world can push you to the wall. I had to come to my senses and start small, and this is where we are now. As I was going through my archives, I came across this video, the video that I had done to pilot for the program I was hoping to have on TV or the show I was going to start on the YouTube. Definitely thinking about all the logistics and everything required, and given what was at hand, I couldn't manage to push it the way I really wanted. And at the end of the day, I ended up pushing my own first video, using my phone to shoot so that we can have it rolling. However, I thought that it's good for you guys to see what was going to be or what is still going to be when the time is right, when everything has come together. Please enjoy this interview and watch out for part 2 because it's also coming. Cheers! A shoe shine boy turned into an international award-winning motivational speaker, author of 14 bestsellers, a witness of undeserving failure and deserving success, has spoken across the globe, making a gigantic difference. Let's dive into the success nuggets with Emmanuel Dei-Tumi. Welcome to the Elevation chapter. Today we have a man from West Africa, Emmanuel Dei-Tumi. Emmanuel Dei-Tumi is one person that you will need to meet. Emmanuel is an author, first of all. He is a leadership coach and he's a trainer. He is an entrepreneur himself. He actually started when he was a little kid as a shoe shine boy. At the moment, he is a man who is crossing from country to country, helping people to better their lives. Now today, we are very lucky to have him on the show, and he's going to share with us his nuggets, how he's managed to move from one step to the other, because he was a nobody at the beginning. But right now, if you mention his name, it's a household name in West Africa. Welcome to the show, Emmanuel.
Thank you for having me.
Good. Now, Ugandans, Emmanuel, I would like to tell you, are the people who are most interested in becoming successful. But from your journey, the way you've been journeying through your life and, ticking off, your checkbox, everything, what is success to you?
Thank you too for having me on the Elevation chapter. I think it's a concept that I need to congratulate you for conceiving this concept, in the sense that we live in a continent where many people who have gone through the hurdles and the loops to get to where they are most often shy away from, as it were, sharing the journey process with the populace, with the world. And so sometimes when you ask people to tell you what has brought them where they are, becomes a difficulty. Now, what we're trying to do is to take a different approach to unravel this, so that people can learn and benefit from the pain, the processes, the sacrifices of many people who have gone the way that others are looking forward to. And it's a good sign. Success for many people, as you said, means different things. Our concept of success is materialistic. So when we say somebody is successful, the picture we tend to have in our minds is that he has abundance of car, money, wealth, houses, and things like that. Now, unfortunately, for where I sit, none of those things is a sign of success. None of those is a sign of success.
Now, this is a whole new thing to us.
Because you can use different approaches to acquire those things. And I know people in my journey to this place so far who had abundance of all of these things that I've mentioned, and yet when you go to sleep, they cannot sleep. People have erected all kinds of walls just to put themselves in artificial prison, and yet they consider those things as success. For me, that's not success. As far as I'm concerned, success is giving yourself a realistic goal, working towards that goal, achieving that goal, and the outcome of that goal benefits the larger population. Wow. That's my definition of success.
the way you have defined success might be very confusing to many of us. And I can tell you, even me, when I was growing up, that is not the way I was looking at success to be. So it took me years to understand that what we see is not what success is. And I'm imagining for you, how long did it take you to understand that success is rather not what is tangible, but rather what you get to impact lives with?
Nelly, I'll tell you that it took me years as well. I didn't get to understand that this is the true import of success until I finished my first degree. And what happened? This was a time when, and in those days, I finished my first degree in 1992. And when I finished, typical of every other young person, I traveled abroad to go to London to look for work. And even though when I was in the university, I was the president of the student body, like here in Uganda, I call it the Guild President. I was the president at the University of Ghana. And yet when I left and went to London, I couldn't get a proper job. So I became a cleaner. And I was cleaning a particular hotel. And one day I went and my supervisor asked me to go and clean a particular floor. And in that floor, there was a particular room that I had to clean the toilet. Now when I was in school, I used to sing. So when I was cleaning this particular toilet, I was singing. And whilst I was singing and cleaning the toilet, water from the water closet entered my mouth. Yes, and my supervisor comes and sees me standing there as an African. Water from water closet enters your mouth, and so I became speechless. This lady, young lady, looks at me, takes 3 steps towards me, and he said, "What are you standing there for?" "What lady?" And I said, "Oh, nothing," because I couldn't tell her what had happened to me. This lady looks at me and said, "You are good for nothing." That's the statement the lady said to me. Now, that statement for me was a wake-up call. Now, it was a Tuesday. By Friday of that same week, I flew back to Ghana. Well, I had an anger inside of me. That how could I be a graduate, SRC president, student representative president of the premier university in Ghana, cleaning toilet, and a white young lady looks at me and tells me, "You are good for nothing."
Good for nothing, yes.
It set me thinking. So I decided to go out there and ask questions. Now, lady, you have to understand, lady, that in life, the quality of your life is a function of the questions you ask. When you ask the wrong questions, you get the wrong answers. And yet when you ask the right questions, you get the right answers. The answers you get is what sets you in motion towards quality of life. And I recall having a conversation with one very old man, and I asked him, "Grandpa, how come this is A, B, C, and D?" And this man says to me, he said, "Listen to me, son. In life, if you are going to become great, don't ask for things. Ask for how people got the things they had. Don't ask for things." Now, 3 years later, or maybe 4 years later, when I was writing my book, after I've done all this book, Unraveling the Secrets to Wealth Creation, Why the Rich Get Rich and the Poor Poorer, I had a conversation with the CEO of the biggest mining company in Ghana. And he said to me, he said, "Emmanuel, many young people come to me to ask for check. Only few people come to me to ask for the ultimate check." Check as writing check to go to the bank. And I asked him, I said, "What is the ultimate check?" He said, "The ultimate check is asking me how I made my money, not the money I have." Now, Nelly, these are the things that set me thinking. So what is really success? Then I discovered that success really is not the material thing, it's not the product, but success is the process that you go through in pursuit of a particular goal that you set for yourself.
Wow. I'm interested also to know, how did you fall, and where did you fall, and how did you come out?
Well, let me say that there is no success in anybody's life without pain. And that is why when people assume that they want to get everything at low price, sometimes I laugh. If you talk to anybody who has made it in life, talk about Donald Trump, talk about Helen Keller, talk about whoever, even in your country here, Patrick Bitaturi and the rest, if you get to talk to them privately, they will share with you the pain that they have had to go through. I have had my fair share of tragedies, of losses, of pain. I started life the very hard way. Like you said in your introduction, I started life as a shoe shine boy. I don't know the exams you guys write here before you go to secondary school, but in Ghana we have what we call the common entrance, which is familiar with most of the West African countries.
So it's PLE for us.
Okay, PLE.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I wrote it for that exam 5 times, and I passed all of them. In Form 2, I passed. In fact, I wrote the first one in Form 1, I passed. But there was no one to pay my fees for me to go to secondary school. So I couldn't go. My mother was poor. My father died when I was 1 year, 6 months, as I said from the beginning. We come from a very, very poor family. In fact, my village, until recently, was not even on the map of Ghana. Okay? And that's how bad my background was. Form 2, I passed. And yet there was no one to pay my fees. Form 3, I passed. Form 4, I passed. I remember Form 4, I passed, and I went to my mother and I said to my mother, I really want to go to secondary school. My mother said, no, I will not allow you to go and expose our level of poverty in public. So remain at home, and perhaps when you finish Form 4, you can go to the farm. So what did I do? Again, I go back to the issue of vision, goals in life. My father had 25 kids because he was a polygamist. I was the last son. And I recall my half-brother at that point was studying in Canada, and he was doing his PhD. And when I became the school prefect in secondary school, I was a school prefect as well. I wrote to my brother and I said, listen, they have elected me as a school prefect. Can you buy me a shoe? My brother wrote back to me and told me, my half-brother, we come from the same father but different mothers, wrote back to me and said to me, I am doing my PhD, so I can't buy you a shoe. Nelly, 6 weeks later, 6 weeks, not months later, my brother came back to Ghana and started building a house. For me, again, that was a wake-up call. And I said to myself, wow, that means if it's going to be up to me.
Yes.
So I set my mind right there that, listen to me, I'm not going to depend on anybody. I'm not going to depend on any other person. That if I'm going to go to secondary school, I have to do something all by myself. So I started going to the villages, and I go and buy plantain, like you guys call here gonja. I'll buy cassava, I'll buy maize, put them in the train to the city and sell. Then on my way back, those days we used to buy trousers materials in the late 80s. Okay, I'll buy them and send them to the village and sell them. In the evenings, I used to go and buy kerosene in gallons, and I'll pour them into bottles, and I'll carry them and move from house to house and sell. That's where my entrepreneurial spirit started.
But that was after you had that triggering moment, the provocative.
Exactly. That's why my brother said to me that I can't buy you a shoe. And I said to myself, I'm not going to stay in this village and become a farmer like any other person has gone through. I want to break the mold. And that's how I set my mind to do that. Vision, goal, like I said to yourself.